Hi, I'm Jill Vitale, awesome with the Eden Alternative. Thanks for joining us today for the Eden Alternative live show. I am thrilled to have Heidi Wagner with me today, and we are going to be talking about the Passions Project, which is a portrait series that Heidi created that captures the essence of older adults doing what they love to do. And Heidi's been a photographer for a long time. She started the Passions Project in 2011, and she works with organizations around the country. We're going to be looking at some of her photographs today and hearing the stories behind these beautiful images. But she works with organizations around the country, and in 2018, her photography became the public art at Leading Age National. So if some of this looks familiar to some of you, you might have seen it at Leading Age. Heidi, thank you so much for being with me today. I'm so glad to talk with you.
Jill, it's always a pleasure to share space with you and have an opportunity to talk about the Passions Project. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, it's so exciting. And I want to encourage everybody who's watching to jump into the comment box. Let us know you're here. And also that this is a great opportunity if you're watching this live to ask Heidi questions and to put in your comments and tell her what you're thinking about when you see some of these images. And then we also will have a question for our live audience today too that Heidi will be asking you. But let's get started. Heidi, how did the Passions Project get started? Let's talk about what it is. What gave you the inspiration? How did you get things moving with this?
Well, it was interesting when I first started the Passions Project. I mean, I was really just trying to create a project that I was feeling and an opportunity to feel really connected to the residents I was working with. So I worked for 11 years at Fraser Meadows Retirement Community in Boulder. And during that time, the thing that I always noticed about the residents is they were always doing such cool and amazing activities. They were involved in sports, political groups, whatever it was. Their schedules were probably more interesting than my own. So I really, when I was wanting to do a project that honored them, I knew I wanted to do something that had to do with all of the interests that they had and not just limited to like one type of avenue. But I was also at the time, we were talking a lot about whole person wellness and the idea of people, finding a well-rounded and multiple opportunities to be engaged in things that they love to do. So having the opportunity to have this incredible group of people to work with and for them to put up with me and me learning, about them, it was really fun. And I took a long time to do the first project. I spend a lot less time now, but started in 2011 and I finished it in 2012, in May of 2012.
So this was photographs of the residents of Fraser Meadows. That's where your first project?
Absolutely. Yeah, them and whatever they're passionate about. So I would just basically start asking people, hey, what's your passion? And people would come to me with their ideas and we would sit down and have an interview and then do photos of them engaging in their passions.
So why passions? What is it about that you think tells the story through photography?
I think when you are connected to your passion, life just becomes so interesting. And I just love that part about, seeing people through their passion, because I think different things go away. I mean, you don't see, for instance, with the Passions Project, one of the best things about it is you're not thinking about, oh, well, I'm looking at photographs of older people. I'm looking at photographs of people who are engaged, interested in their passion, and I want to know more. I mean, it just leads you to another level of engagement with people.
I love that so much. And, I think it really pushes back against a lot of the stereotypes about aging, right? And and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this have done this. And when you go to if you look for stock photos of older people, it's not generally the kinds of things that you're talking about, right? People engaged in their passions and doing things. So you're really shifting the way people look at being older, right? And how do you see this work combating ageism?
I see, I would love for people to see the photographs and for them to start recognizing that, if I was being engaged with my passion really does help me stay connected to my personal self as well as, other people in the community. And when, instead of asking me what my age is, ask me what my passion is. And then we can have a conversation about something that we both share a common, interest in, instead of, people seeing someone for their age and then immediately just thinking, well, there's nothing I can have, there's nothing that we can have in common. So what more do we have to talk about? I see the project as a really big connector, and I think people connect so beautifully over their passions. And yeah. I just absolutely love that. So I'd love to see us to say it's not about a project about aging, it's about living. And how do we live our best life?
I love that. I love that. And you know what? One of my communities where I worked before joining the Eden Alternative, that's we started focusing on what's your passion and what's important to you. Yeah. And the people that lived in the community, it stopped being about, well, this person lives in a memory support neighborhood, so they are here, and this person lives in the nursing home and is in a wheelchair. Like, people came together because of their passions. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It's about living, right? And these passions aren't about being a certain age, but I would imagine you see connections with different generations when people understand or start to see someone's passions. Do you see some of that happening?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, because it doesn't matter what age you are, you can love to read, and you can see that people are reading, readers can come together and find commonality of different works of literature that they enjoy, or people, there can be teaching where it's like, there's certain crafts that are kind of being lost as far as like knitting or crocheting. And then there's just that opportunity to really share and to be an expert and to connect. So any chance that, I love connection. Like, that's like one of the things that I absolutely love. So to have a project that really brings people together and creates connection is one of the things that I find I have a lot of pride in regards to the Passions Project and what it does to not only the people in the community, but people who come in and get to see the photographs as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to see some of those in a few minutes. But in the meantime, you've got a big crowd of fans who are watching, and they're all putting in their, hey, glad to be here, glad to be watching. And you actually have a question already from Laura, and she's asking, what has surprised you the most about your journey with the Passions Project?
How much I needed to be connected to my own passion for this project, because I think it can be challenging to start something that in some ways I sort of felt ahead of the curve. Like, I remember talking about the Passions Project and asking people, what's your passion? And people seeing the project and saying, well, what's this all about? I don't really understand. And having to explain and take that time to explain and get people to really truly be able to see the project for what it is. And then now when I talk about the Passions Project, that people automatically understand what I'm talking about and are automatically connected to it. And so to see the evolution, but there were times when, I got to tell you, it was really challenging to be a part of something that was just is so unique and that nobody else is doing, and to really have to be like the steward for that project and its biggest advocate in a time, and sometimes it felt like I was the only one cheering for the project. But now people are truly understanding it and really get the depth and understanding about the project, and it's so much fun to see that. But there was definitely times when it was hard to be that one person out there talking about, older adults as passionate people.
Yeah. I think there is more of a movement happening now. And once people see your work, then they start to get more excited about it. And what about right now, with, in this era of COVID-19, older people are most at risk. And aging is in the news right now, being over a certain age, there's a big spotlight on it. Why does the Passions Project, why does this work matter now more than ever, would you say? Or does it? I'm guessing it does.
Well, I think so.
I think so too.
I think so. I mean, I think because we're seeing in the news, I mean, since COVID, we have seen so much of how older adults do not get the support that they need. They're not, old retirement communities are not receiving certain support. People are feeling like older adults should sacrifice themselves in order for the rest of us to be able to, thrive and survive. So it's just this ongoing message that, aging, and as you age, you become less important or less vital to our community. So to be showing older adults in this beautiful light of, seeing people in their passion, seeing people who are vital and alive and interesting, and in a way showing us all how to live our best life, that is more important than ever. And we need to listen. I mean, and hopefully it will help people listen to the voices of older adults, because we're all aging. I mean, we're not just stopping aging, or you just don't, it's like I just think the more you're connected to your passion, the more that you are engaged in your life, the less you think about the trappings of, what we all kind of fear about aging.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about some of your favorite photos. And we're going to actually, and I'm so excited about this, to share some of your favorite photos with folks who are watching this today. So let's do that. And Meredith is behind the scenes, getting the photos ready to show. So Heidi, walk us through these. Well,
first, I mean, we have only a certain amount of time to talk. Every photo that I take has such a great story. And so to pick out some of my favorites, John Harris is always someone who comes to mind when people ask me what's some of my favorite memories. And so much of what I love about John Harris's story is John Harris, he's a singer, a baritone singer in a group called the Rivingtons. And they were, he lived in LA for most of his career. He performed, and, they were truly a doo-wop group where, they had the movements, they had, the synchronized movement. And one of the probably more famous songs is The Bird's the Word. So it's kind of, you hear that in different pop culture I've seen. So when I had this chance to talk and photograph John Harris, he was actually living in closer to family in Fort Worth, Texas. And nobody knew his story. Like, people knew John Harris, but they didn't know who he was and what he'd done in his life. And so when the Passions Project we was doing a project at a community in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, John Harris was someone we photographed. And he was so excited. We went to a high school. They had just redone their auditorium, this brand new, beautiful auditorium. We had his music playing over the loudspeaker, and he had on his red tux that he actually performed in. And he just is amazing in the sense of he just like became that performer again. And he was doing the motions, singing the songs, and he just kept saying, "The bird's the word, the bird's the word." And he just came alive in a way that I don't know that I would have had an opportunity to see if I had been, just working with him in a different capacity. And, in the next picture, you can just still see that joy and the engagement that he has and the interest. It was just so much fun to work with him. And then later on, when I went back and we did an art opening of their project, I asked Mr. Harris, I said, "Well, what did you think about your picture?" And he said, "Thanks for making me famous again." And, just that idea of, he then started performing again. People saw his picture and started asking him about his past and this part of his life that he was so proud of. I know. I mean, I just love that part about his story and how he just, it just helped people understand a greater depth of who he is and a way to connect with him. And before, maybe they didn't know any of that about him, and now they do.
There's something so different reading about someone on all their paperwork about their history, of their life, and seeing
Absolutely.
this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I love that he, we with in the Eden alternative, we call that being well known. And really, that's the epitome of what we try to create as people being well known to each other. So these pictures, so his pictures, for example, they're hanging in the community where he lives?
Yes. So part of the project, when you agree to do a passions project, I come in, and it's a commission of either, anywhere between 10 and 20 photos. And then it becomes part of your public art. So you agree to do a public display of the pictures, because I think it's a wonderful way for people to know. I always say, you kind of have your nuts and bolts of your community, but who is the heart and the soul? It is your residents. And so to know them and to connect with them through their passion, you really get to see kind of what the heart and the soul of the community really feels like and looks like. And, and having that opportunity, then I'm, so many times at different art openings, people will look and they'll be like, you're the person in the picture that over here, and tell me about your passion. And you just see that incredible pride that people have in sharing this part of who they are.
Well, and I wish that I had known you so many years ago when I was like opening new buildings, because you spend, and this is just what we do, right? We spend all this money buying photographs that don't really have deep meaning all the time to the people that live in a community. And imagine, having the stories of the people that live there as your beautiful artwork that people see. I mean, there's such a difference there.
Honestly, I always say, it's like, if you're going to hang art, make it mean something. And what more meaning could you have than photographs of your residents and telling your story as a community? Because the passionate people who live in your community are the ones that really tell the story of who you are.
Absolutely.
And you are living in a community that has so many people. You just need to start asking that question: what's your passion?
I love that. I love it. So, okay, so we've got more photos.
Yeah. So the last one of John Harris it was right at the end of the photo shoot, and I just was like, John, give me that, that smile. And he just like gave me this look. I think I blushed during this shot. I think I still look at the shot and I think I'm blushing right now, because he just emanated this like confidence in this, sureness of who he is and that part of himself. And it was incredible. And the next group of photos that I have I worked in the Denver area with different people who are Holocaust survivors. And I was connected with two people through the University of Denver. And this particular, one thing that I found really interesting about working with people who are Holocaust survivors is there's their story of the survival, and then there's their story of thrival. So it's like here, Eric is, he was a hidden child in the Holocaust, and now he at some point became an immigrant and started living in the United States, and now he fights for immigrant rights, and that's a big part of who he is and part of his identity. And it was amazing to talk to him and hear his story of survival, but then finding people who are also finding that greater mission and that connection for themselves.
Absolutely.
And then the next couple pictures is Jack Adler, and he does a lot of speaking and telling his story. His son is also a cinematographer, and so he did a whole film of Jack as well, which was really amazing. And in the next photo is a quote that he always says. It's like, "Don't bite the bait that leads to hate." And that was for him. He likes to stress that because
what a great quote.
Because he experienced, the Holocaust. He was a survivor of Auschwitz, and then he came and lived in Skokie, Illinois, and had to deal with. There was this whole white supremacist group that was really prominent in Skokie, and so here he was living in the United States and then experiencing and hearing many of the same messages that he was hearing, that he heard during World War II. And it was really, really powerful. And for him, you hear his story, and for him to have that outlook and that amazing feelings of, that don't let hate be that part of you that wins. And, and he really emanates that and is a really amazing person. And the next couple pictures are a woman who she's really into storytelling, and she works on her story and storytelling and tells her story of also a hidden child in the Holocaust, and in her story of survival during that time. And the next one is the picture that I really love so much of her, and it's just she's at this moment in the story where was just so, in that moment, and I really feel like it captured just that
beautiful,
the heart of what she was doing. And she's an incredible person. And then the next one is Jack Wellner, and he also has over time done a lot of speaking and talking, and with his picture it's more portrait-like, but I loved him when we were talking and interviewing him. He just sat in his chair and he just told stories. And again, one of his quotes that he tells kids when he goes and does speaking engagements, and on the next slide is, don't let hate get in your heart. And I think that's when you see that theme between Jack Adler and Jack Wellner, where they both understand that the power of hate and how it affected their life, and how we all have a choice about that. And they both were very, connected and very thoughtful about how they wanted to live their life.
And we need those voices now more than ever, don't we?
Absolutely.
Oh, those are beautiful.
The next series, I did this. So the next series I did in California at an incredible community. I want to give them a big shout out. Is Bethany Center in San Francisco, in the Mission District of San Francisco. And I went there, actually Leading Age had sent me there to work with them and to add some photos for the Leading Age display. And oh my gosh, I loved Alice. This is a picture of Alice, and she is an incredible cook. And we just knocked on her door to see if she was there. And she just had this incredible, beautiful display of all this amazing food in her little galley kitchen. And you know how you sort of, you experience food more with all your senses. And, and if you can just seeing Alice's food, my mouth was watering, and I just loved her spirit. I mean, we weren't able to really, she is not a native English speaker, and I don't know any Japanese. So we were struggling a little bit with communication, but it just shows like that smile, you just are blown away. And she was so much fun. Like the next couple pictures are just of Alice in her kitchen, enjoying, just sharing that moment with us and really just connecting. I mean, it just shows that you can connect on many levels with your passion. It doesn't have to just be through words, but through, having fun and just being a part of one another. And the last picture, it's one of my absolute favorites because I just love the expression on her face.
Great. I love it.
I know. I love that one of her. And then the next group is also, she was also a resident at Bethany, and I worked incredibly well. I mean, I had so much fun working with Jessica McCracken there. I don't know if you've ever met Jessie, but she is.
Jesse's watching today.
I see her out here.
She's with you. She's with us.
But she's incredible, such a creative person, and she can get a crowd going easily. If you've ever were at the Inclusion Party last year at Leading Age, Jessie she was working the crowd from the stage. She's amazing. But we went with Savita is the next person, and she is another one that loves to cook, and cooking is her love language. Like she cooks for the staff, she cooks for the people who are her neighbors, she cooks for her family. I mean, she is always going to the farmer's market, getting fresh produce, and it was a lot of fun to go with her. I mean, you know, and this was just a grocery store on Mission Street that we went to, very close to where Bethany is, and you know, we had so much fun. Actually, this picture that's up right now cracks me up every time I see it, because Rita, who also works at Bethany, she was taking pictures of me taking pictures for like, and so then Savita looks up and sees Rita and is looking over at Rita, but I was like, oh, that's perfect. She's not looking at me. And we just got this great shot of her smiling for Rita. And then the next two pictures are just some other shots of Savita just thoughtfully, carefully picking out produce for that thing, you know, for cooking food for people that she loves. So
I love it.
It's a lot of fun to do these projects because I really get to meet amazing people, you know, from everyone from the people who are working at the community to those that live there. And, you know, someone asked me recently, like, oh, well, you know, what kind of people do you love working with? And I'm like, I love working with cool people, and I meet such amazing cool people all the time, you know, that I get to photograph, and truly that inspire me. I mean, I feel so inspired by this project and the folks that I get to meet, you know, not only their stories, but just how they follow their passion every day.
And that reminds me, Laura had asked a question that seems like a really good question, especially right now. But she asked, is there a particular story or interaction during your years of working with your subjects that transformed perspective for you or shifted a paradigm for you?
Oh gosh, Laura, with the tough questions.
I know, she's got good questions.
Such good ones. Let's see. You know, working with John Harris was a really big one. Also another one from the project in Dallas. I worked with a gentleman that he appeared to have dementia, you know, and I remember interacting with him before we did pictures, and I was just, you know, introduced myself to him. I knew we were going to do photographs together, and, you know, we weren't really able to connect very well during that conversation, but then when we met for the photographs, he loved baseball. And so he was dressed in his baseball uniform, and we met at a baseball field, and we were throwing pitches back and forth together. And I just was like, tell me about your time playing baseball. What do you love about baseball? What was your position that you played? And he was right there with me in that moment. And they often talk about window moments with people with dementia. And you just felt like I just got to step into this moment with him in talking about this part of his passion. And it just really goes to show how deep your passion can run, and how even if other things feel disconnected to you, when you feel connected, but you can always come back and reconnect to your passion.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. I love it so much. Were those all the photos? I didn't mean to cut it off.
No, there's a couple more, but definitely want to. This is one of the most recent photos that I did, and that was there. This is Jesse. He lives at Eaton in Lakewood, Colorado. And we did a project with Eaton in late February of 2020. And the cool thing about that project that I love is not just the people, but that Pinkard Construction, they're a construction group in Colorado, in the Denver area, and they sponsored this project for Eaton. So, you know,
so cool.
It is the coolest thing. And it's a huge goal of mine, is to be for organizations to sponsor projects for, you know, communities that are affordable housing, or communities that may not be able to necessarily do a project.
But Eaton does affordable housing, right? And that's very cool that Pinkard sponsored this and made it happen. That's great.
It was so cool. And, you know, with Jesse, he's a singer, and he talked so much about like how much singing meant to him, and his mom was a singer, and several of his siblings are singers, and how they performed together as a group, and would go out and sing in different parts of Denver, but also around the country. But that it was something that he really, really connected with his mom about. Like, his mom took him everywhere, and his mom was a singer, and so he just started singing, you know, with her. And it was just to have that connection again. There's that intergenerational connection, and then like on the next picture, you see him like I just had him singing a song, and I just would photograph him singing the song, and I started doing audio when I do interviews, and so I had him sing part of the song that he was singing, and so to have him, I have some audio of him singing, and
oh wow.
he's.
So, we were talking, I remember when we talked like 2 years ago, we were talking about, wouldn't it be cool to go up to these photos and like have a recording that you could listen to, when you could actually hear the person's voice, or hear, him singing, or.
Well,
so you're
I
still
do.
thinking about that,
Oh,
huh?
absolutely. I mean, that's a dream for sure. I mean, right now with COVID, I haven't been able to do a lot of in-person photos, so we got a group of really cool people together to start talking about doing an ageism campaign. And that is one of the things that has come up, is for us to do some sort of touch screen. I mean, can you just see like on Denver's 16th Street Mall, a touch screen, and then, and someone saying, do you know who I am? And you touch the screen, and it's the story of the person, and you could hear Jesse singing, and you hear part of his, see pictures of him when he was younger, with his mom, and singing with his brothers and his brother-in-law and his sister, and to be able to really get into people's stories and hear their voice as well. I just, as you can see, like that's a big interest of mine, and I would love for that to happen. That would be so much fun. So much fun.
I have a feeling you'll get there.
My hope is, I hope so, because I just think now's a huge time to talk about ageism and to really try to eradicate it and get people to see people as people instead of young people, old people, this person, that person, and putting us in all these separate boxes that keep us apart. Like, that's why I see passion is like that bridge between these boxes that we have, that we sit in our communities, and that passion will bridge us together.
Absolutely.
Oh, I mean, if you were a singer, you'd want to know Jesse, because you'd be like, I got to go talk to Jesse about singing because he's such a cool guy, you just look at him.
I want to go talk to him, and I'm not a singer, so.
I know. I mean, even in the next picture, and what we did with his picture, which I've done with other people who was singing, I don't know why I'm doing murals, but Jesse was also a big advocate and worked in advocacy around Latino equality back in, I think it was the 70s and 80s as well in Denver. And so I really wanted to bring in his Latino heritage, and we were in a part of Denver that really, that had some new murals that were going up. Yeah. And so to put him in front of that also kind of gives this depth to the photo of putting him in a space and time of like, what are other things that are important to him, and what else is part of who he is. And that advocacy is very important to him too. So that's part of the reason why you see that mural behind him. And then the last group that we have, the last group of pictures, was a gentleman that I photographed. His name is Mark, and we took his picture in Boulder. He is, he does a lot of he was a teacher, a second language teacher, lived in Argentina. I think it was Argentina or Chile, I can't remember. And he's very connected to language and learning. And so that's why his t-shirt says, "Nobody knows I'm gay," in Spanish. And, I like a lot of, I can really relate to him being a, queer identified as well person, the struggle that we've had and that he's had around identifying who you are, being proud of who you are, and, really taking that opportunity to tell your story and understanding that not everyone is with you in this fight, and it can be very challenging and again, feel very isolating. But, I think that I loved talking with Mark because I could really see myself in him and also feel and be a part of what his struggle, but also his identity of wanting to talk to younger queer kids and be able to tell his story in hopes that his struggle won't have to be other people's struggle down the road.
Absolutely.
And then he loves to hike, and so in the next picture you see him with his hiking stick and his hat he always hikes with, and the Boulder Flatirons right behind him, and he's a great guy. And he tells the story about when he was growing up and being called a sissy and being called names, and it being something that was incredibly hard and hurtful for him, and to see him rise above that and to then want to advocate and help current issues with LGBTQ people is fantastic and so empowering when you really find your own voice. I mean, I think you have a choice in how you choose to express yourself, and he's really an amazing advocate for LGBTQ people.
Very cool. So it's purpose and passion you're capturing, I'm seeing in a lot of these. How Absolutely. Am I making a difference in the world and giving back and making the world a better place? Wow.
Yeah. And, a lot of people here, maybe feel like, what is our passion? Maybe you're starting to ask yourself, like, what's your passion? What would I be doing in a picture? But I think that, your passion doesn't have to be epic or extraordinary or changing the world. It can be as simple as reading, as knitting, or, it can be quieter passions, more contemplative passions. It just needs to be your own and something that you connect with and that you feel vibrant and alive through.
Yeah, those things where you kind of go into the zone and like time doesn't exist and you're just in your place. Absolutely.
Yeah, I see so many of those super senior moments of like, the things that get kind of the attention is like people who are, like the Iron Nun or the people jumping out of airplanes or running marathons. And, those are extraordinary stories, but they're not as the story for many, many people. But a lot of people can identify with doing art, playing an instrument, enjoying, things that are a little bit more kind of, and like I said, contemplative. And it just, like I said, as long as it's yours, that's all it needs to be. We don't have to be amazing and, going out there and jumping out of airplanes every single day to be amazing and be connected.
Yeah. And you wanted to ask our audience a question, right? So go ahead and ask them, and we'll ask everybody to put it in the comment box to answer this question. So what's your question?
So the question I have for everybody is, if I was going to be taking your photo, what would that photo look like? What would that picture be? So Jill, what would your photo be? What would I be taking your picture of?
You caught me off guard. It would probably be probably really messy artwork with my dog with like paint in his fur. Because I love art, but I'm like really messy and I'm always trying new things, and I love my dog. And then my husband would be in there with something to clean up after me. That's kind of the story of my life.
My passion, a big shout out to my squash friends that are out there. I love to play squash. I mean, that I always think, like, people ask me a lot, like, well, what would your picture be? And I love playing squash. So,
awesome.
A lot of great squash players out there. So shout out to that. I want to hear what Laura's passion is, and Denise.
I know.
Tell me what your passion is, Jessie.
It'll take a minute for these to pop in the box. While they do, so there's a question that somebody had while we're waiting is, do you ever do photo? Wait, it was from, oh gosh, darn it. She was, I can't remember who, there's so many comments, I can't find it. But asked if you ever take pictures with people with their pets as their passion.
Yes. So I'm laughing because people will ask me, what is the hardest subject? Person, I always say cats are my toughest subjects because I've done pictures with people and their cats, And I've gotten kind of lucky in some ways, but I actually have gone to take pictures of people and their cats, and the cats are very cat-like in the sense where they're like, that's not my good side. I'm not interested in getting my photo taken today. So,
the cat's like, this is not my passion, and I'm leaving. Goodbye.
Yeah. I might be your passion, but you're not mine.
That's a perfect so let's see. We've got Laura Beck says dancing with her whole heart. That would be her photo, and I could totally see that. Chris Angevine said connecting with my animals or throwing pottery, or both.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Denise says playing cards with the grandkids or sewing a quilt.
Oh, wow. Quilters, I find quilters amazing because the creativity, the skill, the intricacy of the sewing, the colors. I mean, if there's one thing that people kind of misunderstand about me, they're always like, they think I know a lot about color, but I actually don't. And so when I see people who know so much about color and put those colors together and what looks good, oh man, I'm just often amazed.
Yes, it really is such an amazing thing when somebody really gets color.
Yeah. Oh.
Let's see. Joan says I would be surrounded by my grandchildren somewhere outside on a hiking trail.
Nice. Thanks, Joan, for watching.
Jessica says so many, but watercolor or cooking would probably photograph the best.
Well, you'd be surprised what we can do.
Denise, I love cooking. Oh, go ahead.
I love doing photos of people cooking, and I also love artists and musicians. I think musicians in particular, because I can't play an instrument, and so, well, I don't know that I can't, but I've never had the opportunity to. So the chance of like taking a picture of someone who's an accomplished musician and seeing someone so connected to music, I love that. Like, that's really so spiritual. I love it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Boy, there's a lot of people here. Let's see. Denise says, I just reignited my love of road biking.
Nice, Denise. Out in California, it's Denise. She used to be in Dallas. I met her in Dallas, and then she's now back in Santa Rosa, California. I'm meaning to connect with you, Denise. Sorry that we haven't reconnected.
Hey, this is a good way to connect. Yeah. Meredith says, it would be snuggling my 109-pound golden retriever, Izzy. Oh. Even my husband knows this is true.
As long as you have that understanding, that's good.
Yes. Juliet says photo of Juliet taking photographs of birds and wildlife somewhere out in the wild.
Juliet is an amazing photographer. She and her husband often go off to Yellowstone National Park, and their pictures that come back from Yellowstone and other places. Oh, just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
Cool.
So yeah, Juliet, we'll have to do that sometime. We'll meet you in Yellowstone.
See, you're getting so many connections right now doing this. Jessie said, my passion is engaging others, spreading joy and inspiration. Is Jessie a speaker?
Jessie she's the one that works at Bethany. She's amazing.
Oh, yes. Okay.
You're rocking that, Jessie, because you are so good at that.
Laura says being near water. Oh, Lisa's here from South Africa. She says it would be riding her bright red bicycle. I could just see that photo.
Awesome. Yeah.
Bright red bicycle.
I love it.
These are awesome. Very cool. Now, Heidi, have you ever had someone take a picture of you playing squash with your passion?
Well, yeah, I had to set that up, but I did I did a series on what is my passion, since I'm always asking other people. So I decided to do a little series. So I had my friend Ben come with me to the squash court. This was probably about a year ago now. And we did some video and some photos of me playing squash. So.
Oh, cool.
I know and actually a friend of mine, I was playing in a squash tournament in Seattle in November. And it's a big women's national tournament. And so women from all over the country playing squash, different levels. And I got my friend Christine took this great video of me doing this drop shot up in the front, like rushing the front of she got the slow-mo video of me doing that.
Very cool.
I'm not gonna lie. I think there's about 20 views of it, and they're all probably mine. But I just love playing squash. So yeah, I definitely did
Very
some squash
cool
stuff.
So this is kind of off topic, but I'm really curious about this. How many photos, and I think I read a National Geographic article about this once, or an interview with a National Geographic photographer, but like how many photos do you take to get like one that you love? What's the ratio usually?
I would say per photo shoot, I probably take at least 500, sometimes closer to 1,000. But it just, it just depends. I mean, there's times when you get the shot and you go back and you go, I think I got the shot in the first like 10 shots that I did. And then other times it just takes a little bit of time for that chemistry and, to everything to kind of evolve. And you get the shot in the last 10 shots that you do. So it really can vary, but there's sometimes when, and you kind of know, I mean, I kind of know, I'm like, oh, I got some good stuff there. And then sometimes I go back and I'm like, oh, I didn't, but I got some okay stuff. But, you kind of are like, but
yeah. And that's a really good lesson, like for everybody, right? Is we see the finished, we see the, oh, and it's like that with anybody who's really good at something. You see the perfection, the finished thing, but there's a lot that goes into it. And everything's not perfect, and you try it again, and if that's not quite it, and then you keep going back and tweaking. And I don't know, I think whenever I like look at photography or talk with someone like you, that's something I try to remember, is that it's a good lesson for life.
Yeah, I mean, there's no script, and there's not anything that's going to tell you how to do it or how to do it right. And a lot of it for me, I'm a very intuitive person, so I have to really listen to my intuition. But I also tell people that, a photo shoot doesn't have to be brain surgery. You don't have to do this for 5 hours, 10 hours. We can get what we need. And if we feel like we got what we need, it can take 10 to 20 minutes, I tend to like to spend closer to 20. It's when there was a shoot I did recently, and it was for a Chicago Health Magazine shoot that I just did recently at the beginning of March, right before COVID.
Yeah.
And the article just came out, and I was looking through, and I actually got the chance to take a picture of a squash player, and we had literally like 5 minutes to do his picture, and I was like, 5 minutes? How am I going to do this in 5 minutes? I mean, I think maybe I took 50 pictures of him, but luckily, since I know the game and I knew what I needed, and I knew what I was kind of going to be walking into, I could do it in 5.
Wow.
I think I pushed it to 10, but it, and could have maybe gotten a little bit some other kind of cool shots out of it if I'd worked it a little bit more, probably. But did I get what we needed? And did it, was I happy with it? Yes, we got it. We did okay. But yeah, so there's sometimes when it's a little stressful, but it was fun.
Oh, I can't even imagine. And, so as we're talking, I want to encourage anybody who's watching this, seriously, if you have a community or a service or whatever it is I just remember so many times, Heidi, where we would do photo shoots because we didn't want to use stock images for like my community. And these were amazing, really great photographers, but it was like staged photos of people sitting in the dining room and staged photos of people sitting outside. And gosh, if we could get more, well, I encourage everybody to contact you and do a photo shoot that's about passions, because then you're on your website, in your brochures, you're telling a story. You're changing the narrative about what it means to be older. And you're talking about what your community's culture is.
All in one shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're having the people that live there become well known. And so again, if you are watching this and please do stuff like this. This is how we start to shift the way people think about aging. I just think it's, Heidi, I think your work is amazing, and your passion is amazing. And so if somebody is out there, like how can different people or organizations work with you? How does it work?
If I really love working with organizations who are resident-centered, people-centered, because they really do truly understand the value, the value add of working with a photographer that, like me, who's doing this type of project, because they also see value. They also want to tell those stories, also want to be a part of a bigger mission, because the Passions Project is not just a simple portrait series. It's a portrait series of people doing their passions as a way of redefining aging. So when you do a Passions Project, you are also part of that message of redefining aging and, you know, changing the world's view about what aging really looks like and what living looks like. So, you know, I always look forward to people who, in organizations that are going to take the photos and not just, you know, have them sit in a file on their computer, but, you know, hang them on their walls. It becomes their public art. They bring people into their space and use the pictures creatively to tell the story of passion and aging and cool people, and then use pictures and use them as a way to outreach into their community, and then, you know, also use audio and bring in videographers to then tell this bigger story about aging and ageism, and how do we move from understanding what ageism is to having it be just something that is not a part of our culture and something that we are all just, you know, we understand and really truly value people of all ages, and what everyone's value add is to our culture, and how necessary it is to have that diversity of age throughout our culture.
So really, if I'm at a community, then I have to make a commitment, if you're going to come do this, that it's not just going to be stuff that goes in my brochure, and I'm going to do something different with it, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking for very specific types of organizations to work with, which is awesome.
I love creative people. I always say I've been creative with this project, but I'm not the only person that knows how to be creative. So when you see people who just want to take the photos and shout out to the world about, you know, the message of, you know, eradicating ageism and the amazing people that live in their communities, that's what I want people to do. That's absolutely what I want people to do with them, because that's the true value. This is not stock photography. This has more depth and more opportunity in it than that. And I love people that take care of that opportunity.
There's a story behind every single photograph. Absolutely. Oh, Heidi, I am going to have to go back and watch this again so I can look at those photos again, because and hear you telling those stories again is so powerful. And I just can't thank you enough for being with us today and being part of this. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you if they do, when they want to work with you? Is it the website?
Yeah, you definitely go on my website. You can see some of the photos that we talked about today, but other ones as well. So that is thepassionsproject.com. So passions with an S, because we have many people with many passions. So thepassionsproject.com. And also, I love when people connect with me on Instagram. I mean, that's really kind of how the whole Leading Age installation happened, is that Leading Age has been following my work, and they realized that they wanted those photos to be their public art. So Instagram is the same. It's the Passions with an S project. And those are, I mean, the Passions Project on Instagram, that is definitely much more dynamic as far as like you see the stuff that I'm working on right now, and the projects that I just got, you know, finished with, or, you know, different things that I'm, you know, working on currently, or things that are coming up, you know, in now time, and not just, you know, the website has some great stories, some blog posts, and then also I'm not a great writer, so writing is really challenging to me. So not a lot of blog posts, but some extra stories. And then, you know, but Instagram's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more some little video and some photos and stories.
Perfect. Well, I hope everyone watching will go to your website and go and follow you on Instagram. And thank you so much to everybody who joined us today and shared what your passions are and were part of the conversation. You made the show so much better. We always appreciate you all watching and being a part of this. So next week, I want to encourage people to come back for our show next Monday. We have Myron, who is the owner, CEO of Our Care Call Systems. And we're going to be talking about some really interesting things. They've been a longtime partner of the Eden Alternative. And we're going to be talking a little bit about what they've been doing in the midst of COVID, where they've got these self-contained call systems. They've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers to get different COVID units set up. They were really doing their part and making a big difference in this challenging time our country is in. And we're going to be talking about how do these systems make communication even better and promote really self-advocacy for residents. And he, even in our conversation planning for this discussion, he really helped me to rethink some of my perceptions that I had from my experience with these systems. So I hope you'll join us next week. Heidi, thank you so much for being with us today.
Jill, it was my pleasure. I love spending time with you, and I just think you're amazing. And all the work that you do and Eden is doing, I love it. And we're all kind of on a similar mission. So
yes,
it's great when we can intersect and have fun and really have a great conversation about the things we're passionate about too.
Well, I look forward to finding more opportunities to work together.
That would be awesome. I would love that.